Tucker Carlson has lately been really pointing out a lot of the problems with our relationship with Israel, which is why Netanyahu labels him as someone part of the woke Reich, as Netanyahu claims. I don't know if he's pointed out Tucker specifically, but certainly would be included in the list of who Netanyahu is kind of pointing at. But he recently did a monologue that was about 33 minutes long about the really humiliating relationship the United States has with Israel. And I want to play for you some of the most important aspects of his monologue and talk about this. Here is one. Let's just talk about some of the issues that he brings up. Our really disproportionate relationship, the fact that we say that they're an ally and we will do anything to protect them, including anybody who's against Israel, we're against them. But it doesn't work in the other way around. But let's watch this first clip.
We are spending our time, our money, and we're taking enormous risks on behalf of a country that geopolitically is not significant at all. The interesting thing is, most Americans have no idea that this is true. They don't know how disproportionate our attention to Israel and our spending on Israel is relative to the rest of the world. And if you want some sense of how disproportionate, India and China combined, neither of which is a strong ally at the moment, combined represent more than a third of the entire world's population. Both are rivals economically, both are rivals militarily, at least potentially. And our relationship with them has gotten worse, or is at the very least languished, because of our relationship with Israel, because of the bandwidth consumed by tending to it, and also because of some of the inevitable conflicts that have arisen because of our support for Israel, which is engaged in an extremely controversial, which is to say hated war in Gaza, which is not even really a war. It's a massive displacement of people and killing on a grand scale of unarmed people, of unarmed combatants, of civilians, of women and children. And the world sees this, and the world rejects it, and the world hates it. And so Israel's really last remaining ally of size, other than the UK, is the United States. And so there's a huge cost to this. But again, most Americans have no perspective on just how disproportionate our commitment is, because they marinate in lies about this relationship, mostly from our political class, also from the media. But really, if you were to lay the blame on one group in the United States, it's our elected leaders who continuously lie to us about the nature of this relationship, its significance.
Yeah, absolutely. Our leaders have been lying about the fact that Israel has been taking a boatload of money from us. Not only that, but our second largest recipient, which he points out in this piece, is Egypt. And the only reason why we're giving Egypt a ton of money is at the behest of Israel. So you actually could clump that all together into one. So here we are giving a ton of money to Israel, spending a lot of time on Israel. And for what geostrategic purpose is it? One thing he brings up is the fact that we are being bossed around by Israel. And why are we allowing ourselves to be humiliated?
The second thing we can do is get some freaking self-respect and stop being ordered around by a client state. That's not good for us. It's not good for them. It's not good for anybody. It's like being screamed at by your children. No normal parent would allow that, because it's totally destructive. It's not good for you, and it's not good for the child. And that is exactly the relationship that we have with the state of Israel. In fact, not in theory, in fact, it is a huge country and a tiny country. The huge country supports the tiny country. And that's a pretty nice thing to do. Whether it's wise or not is a whole separate conversation. But if you're going to have that relationship, a parent to a child, you cannot be yelled at, humiliated, spied upon, bossed around by the child, by the person in the inherently subordinate position. You can't do that. And you can't be shamed into ignoring things that are quite clearly not the behavior of a subordinate ally to a big brother ally. For example, spying on the country that makes your economy and your defense possible, which the Israelis have been doing for generations. That's a fact. One of them very famously was caught, Jonathan Pollard, who's an American citizen, taking real secrets, like actual military secrets, and sending them to Israel, which promptly sent a bunch of them to the Soviet Union, which was our arch rival, our foe at the time. And that happened, and he went to prison, and then somehow he got out of prison and went to Israel, where he continues to denounce the United States. And anyone who says anything about it is attacked. Oh, you're an anti-Semite. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. That's insulting. Why would we ever put up with that? Why would we put up with the attack on the USS Liberty that everyone's so afraid to talk about, clearly targeted on purpose by a country we're supporting, Israel? And it's somehow shameful to say that? Why? Why is it shameful to say that? Who knows why it's shameful to say that, but it shouldn't be. And until we have some self-respect, not anger or hate, but just dignity, it will continue. In June, for example, during the 12-day war, such as it was with Iran, the U.S. and Israel versus Iran, bombing on all sides, during that short conflict, IDF officers in the Pentagon, foreign military officers in the Pentagon, and by the way, they're not the only foreign military officers in the Pentagon, to be clear. There are NATO officers, they're from other countries, British, but there are a bunch of Israeli Defense Force officers in the Pentagon that week. And during that week, ask anyone who works at the Pentagon, they enraged American Pentagon staff by just barging into meetings, giving orders, making demands, and nobody did anything about it.
What? Like, why would the Israeli military be bossing around people in the Pentagon and nobody does anything about it? How shameful, how humiliating. How much of this can we take? Just being completely humiliated. Every time Netanyahu shows up, he's got a smirk on his face. And this is why. Because he knows he does control the United States. And as Tucker had reported before, Netanyahu was going around and telling people in Israel that he controls Donald Trump. He controls Donald Trump. He was happily bragging about it. And now you've got IDF forces in the Pentagon bossing around top military American brass. What is that about? Why are we allowing this? Why are we allowing all of this humiliation? Because America loves money, I guess. Either that, or our politicians are being totally bought off, or they're being brainwashed, or they're being blackmailed. It's one of the three. And it's allowed a foreign nation to infiltrate and control. And now we're allowing them to buy social media. We're allowing them to propagandize our youth. We're allowing them to control free speech in America. We've got 36 or 37 states in the union that have laws in the books against that really are against the First Amendment, an American's First Amendment right. But they do this on behalf of Israel. You're not allowed to boycott, divest, or sanction or call for this in 37 states in the union if you have government contracts or if you work for the government anyway. We've got universities that are barring students from entering if they don't take anti-Semitism courses. We've got American universities who've kowtowed to the demands of Israel, saying that the protests that students held on campuses, you're not seeing any pro-Palestine protests this season, this term in the colleges, and it's because the colleges have had to clamp down on Americans' free speech, on our youth's free speech, all at the behest of Israel. And now you've got top military brass in the Pentagon also just lowering their eyes and saying, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir. Yes, Israeli, sir, we'll do whatever you want. What is going on? Why is America allowing this sort of total and complete humiliation? And here's another aspect of the humiliation. Israel demands that any of their enemies, the United States treat as an enemy. That essentially, if a country is going to boycott Israel, then we, the United States, need to boycott that country. They demand this of us. But guess what? It is not in return. Who is the number one greatest foe that the United States says is our biggest economic foe, the country we have to worry about? China. So you would think that if Israel's our greatest ally, that they would also be weary of China. But instead, they actually take our tech, they take our military, they take our stuff, and they sell it off to China. Just recently this week, I noticed a strange social media post where Israel was saying, oh, congratulations to China. We want to send you some warm thoughts and how wonderful it is. I think they were congratulating them on an anniversary, but sending them warm wishes on social media just to humiliate America, just to humiliate us, to show that our enemies are your enemies, but your enemies are not so much our enemies. In fact, they're our friends, and you're just going to have to accept that. And here's Tucker talking about this.
So Israel's our greatest ally. We should never ask anything of them. Of course, you heard Nikki Haley. You hear all of them say exactly the same thing. Protecting Israel is the most important thing. They're our only real ally. If they're our only real ally, why does Israel have a long history of transferring military technology, including American military technology, to China? To China? Most people have no idea that's true. It is true. Why is China running the port of Haifa, Israel's biggest port? Really, if they're such a close ally? And of course, the answer is because from Israel's perspective, we're not a close ally. We're a country that has been willing to help them. But when you only have 9 million people and a limited defense budget, you take help where you can get it. So the loyalty is not requited. It's one way. And I think the good news is that the government of Israel, in particular, the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has pushed it too far. And he did that in part by running around telling people what he thought was true, apparently. I control Donald Trump. I control the United States Congress. I control the United States. He said that to political allies and opponents in his country. He said it to foreign heads of state. Fact. I control these people. Don't you worry. And by the way, if you kick me out of office, the next guy probably won't have the level of control that I have. He's made that case openly, verbally. He said it out loud. And
this is just a humiliation ritual. I mean, we just seem to really love it. Maybe, what is it that the U.S., what are we getting out of this? And that is a big question that no one's really been able to effectively answer. Why is Israel our greatest ally? Are they our largest trading partner? No. They have a tiny economy. They are not even close to being on the list of our top trading partner. What is it that we're getting out of this tiny country other than being bossed around, screamed at by our child, as Tucker put it, in the grocery store because we won't give in to their demands? And so now they're humiliating us in front of everybody, and we're taking it. We're not punishing them. We're not putting them in their place and saying, hey, listen, I'm the parent here. I'm the boss. I'm the bigger one of the two of us. No, we're not doing any of that. We're instead just allowing them to continually humiliate us over and over and over again. And this administration has allowed them to humiliate us even more by, we made China sell TikTok, even though it was under control of a Singaporean who's not Chinese. And we handed it over to somebody who's who's the largest private funder of the IDF, to Larry Ellison, who's got his loyalties to Israel. So the Chinese can't have TikTok, but Israel can. We don't want Russian influence in our social media, but Israel can. It's fine. No other country, we're the biggest, mightiest country, says our military, except the IDF when they come storming into our offices and yell at us and humiliate us and make our generals kowtow. This is humiliating, and we're allowing the humiliation. The big question is, Tucker's really putting himself out there. He's being smeared. He's being called an anti-Semite. You've got a lot of people and one thing he points out in this monologue, which I encourage you to watch the whole thing. It's about 33 minutes long. And then he interviews Jeffrey Sachs. So I encourage you to watch the entire episode, actually. But one thing he points out on here is, a lot of this stuff online of people saying, all the real terrible anti-Semitic stuff that's actually being spewed. The people that are out there saying they hate Jews, they're all bad things are because of Jews, because they're Jews, not because of Israel, not because of the genocide, but simply because they're Jews. We're seeing some real genuine anti-Semitism online. But Tucker points out, how do we know it's actually genuine coming from actual Americans who feel that way? It seems like it would be in Israel's interest to flood our social media with a bunch of anti-Semites in order for people to say, well, there's a real genuine problem with anti-Semitism. I don't know anybody in my life who's an actual anti-Semite, but I will tell you this. A lot of people lately, some of the kindest people I know are starting to say, you know what? I'm just starting to not like Jews in general. This is the thing I'm hearing over and over from people now, that they've gotten to a point where it was first, I don't like Zionism, I don't support Israel and their genocide, to now I'm just starting to have it with Jews in general because they don't know who to trust. This whole campaign has made it to where people are saying, I don't know, I can't differentiate anymore because for one, all of these Israelis, these average Israelis, 85% of them are supporting the genocide of children. And then you've got the American Jews who are supporting it as well. And so, and they're getting more radical. They're becoming more radical. And now they're flooding our social media. They're controlling our universities. They're controlling our speech. They're controlling all of these things. And they're Americans. So it's not just Israelis. because people can't differentiate anymore between Zionism and Judaism, because unfortunately Zionism is embedded in Judaism in today's world. It is taught in every single synagogue. It's taught to them from birth that it's part of their religion. It's been ingrained as part of the religion, rather than being separated as a nationalistic movement that is separate from Judaism. Of course, there are many Jews who do not believe in Zionism at all, but they are a shrinking, I should say, minority, unfortunately. A shrinking minority. Not a growing group, but a shrinking group. And that is alarming. And that is causing people to say, I'm having some disdain for the group, because I think the group might be doing, it's the group that's doing this, even though there are outliers of the group. And that is what all of this is causing. So Israel is not helping itself, or actually, but then Israel likes that, right? They like that. They want people to start they want real anti-Semitism. If they're flooding our social media with anti-Semitism to make you think there's a big problem, we have to do something to combat it, universities have to do something to combat it, then why wouldn't they like real anti-Semitism? They would just use it to their advantage. So they're trying to turn people against Jews in order to get them to, so that they can use that as a weapon and say, see, you're all just a bunch of anti-Semites. We're being abused. We're being humiliated. This is a disaster for all people. I don't see a single winning group out of this. I don't see, obviously the Palestinians aren't winning. Obviously the American people are not winning. And obviously Jewish people aren't winning either. This isn't helping anybody. None of this is helping anybody. And it is just humiliating. It's outraging. And but more and more people are speaking out, and we're getting bigger and bigger voices like Tucker Carlson speaking out. Even Piers Morgan is now against the genocide in Israel when he was a big staunch Israeli ally. All the allies are turning. What is it going to take? That is the big question. What is it going to take for our members of our government to start turning the tide as well? That is one question we should be demanding an answer to. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.